bread kitchen. Today I'm going to show you a loaf which can be found all over Italy during the Christmas period. It has a very distinctive tall shape and a lovely buttery taste. It's called panettone. Now, unusually for bread, I've got quite a few ingredients here, so I'll talk you through them. I've got 400 grams of bread flour, 120 grams of lukewarm milk, 2 beaten eggs and 2 egg yolks which I've beaten together, 150 grams of butter, this is at room temperature, 75 grams of sugar, 115 grams of candied mixed peel, 75 grams of raisins, 2 teaspoons of yeast and half a teaspoon of salt. Add the yeast to the milk, mix and then leave for 10 minutes for the yeast to get going. Put the flour and the salt in a large bowl and mix together. Now make a very pronounced well in the centre of the flour. Now we'll add the yeast into the middle here, together with the 2 beaten eggs, the whole eggs. Mix and very gradually incorporate some flour into the centre here. What we're trying to do is create a thick paste in the middle. It's getting thicker in the middle here as I'm incorporating more and more flour. So what I've got here is a thickish paste in the middle with flour still around the outside. Now I'm just going to flick some of that flour onto the top of the paste. Now I'm going to leave this as it is in a nice warm place for about 30 minutes. What's happening here is there's a kind of pre-ferment going on which is going to add flavour into the final bread. After 30 minutes your mixture should look something like this. So now I'm going to add in the egg yolks and the sugar and mix this all to a dough. Eventually it'll all come together into this soft but slightly tacky dough. Now I'm going to work the butter into this dough. That's why it's important to have the butter soft. Keep working the dough in the bowl until all the butter is well incorporated into the dough. The dough's not looking too bad, still slightly tacky. I think it's time to work it now. I'm turning the dough out onto a lightly floured surface. Now I'm going to knead this for 10 minutes. From time to time it's good to kind of scrape it all together, then carry on kneading. Now after 10 minutes it should kind of come together into a dough, and you'll have lovely soft hands as well. If yours doesn't, then maybe your kitchen's a bit too warm. In which case, put the dough in a bowl and pop it in the fridge for about an hour. Now the dough will be kind of floppy, slightly tacky and greasy at the same time, but it does come together and it does lift off the surface. Now I'll pop it into a lightly oiled bowl, cover, and then put it somewhere where it's not too warm. Room temperature or below is fine, and we're going to leave the dough to double in size. Now what I've got here is a 6-inch cake tin. It's quite deep, it's about 2.5–3 inches deep. I've greased the inside and I've lined it inside with baking paper on the bottom. And then I've got 2 layers of baking paper coming all the way up, and its total height here is about 8 inches. I've put 2 different colours of baking paper just to show you that there's 2 layers. And this hopefully should provide enough support to the rising dough. My dough's risen very well, so I'm going to turn it out onto a lightly floured surface. Knock the dough back to degas it. Now sprinkle the mixed peel and the raisins all over the dough. Now fold them in. And knead this gently now to distribute the dried fruit all throughout the dough. After a couple of minutes the fruit should be reasonably evenly distributed throughout the dough. Now we'll drop it carefully into the tin, plop, and just pop a little piece of plastic on the top just to stop it drying out, and then leave this at room temperature now for about an hour and a half or so to allow the dough to rise. As you can see, this has risen quite well. It's probably 2 to 3 inches outside the base of the pan. I'm just going to brush the top with a little melted butter, and I'll cut a little cross in the top with a very sharp knife. Now this is going to go into the oven at 175 degrees centigrade fan oven, 190 normal oven for 20 minutes. After 20 minutes, turn the oven down 10 degrees, brush the top with a little more melted butter, then pop this back in the oven for about another 20 to 25 minutes. After about 25 minutes, leave it to cool for about 5 or 10 minutes before you try and get it out of the tin. Right, let's see if we can get this here loaf out. Then pop it onto a wire rack and unwrap it. Lovely! It's soft, it's light and deliciously buttery. This bread reminds me a lot of brioche with its rich and buttery taste, but those little bits of dried fruit add a real sparkling to the taste as you're eating it. I hope you enjoy making your panettone, and do join me next time in the bread kitchen.